Hi, BookTube. Big Y here from Bangkok. This is Dan. I am going to do one of the prompts or one of the memes or whatever you call them, tropes that are going around booktubers talking about their sort of top 10 classics, right? Um, of the Western canon or of the canon, depending how each person interprets it. I am going to stick to the Western canon, even though I'm always trying to do, um, of course, world literature and promote literature from lesser known countries, lesser known authors. In the case of the canon, I can speak better to, I've certainly tried to read at least the epic poems of some different countries, but I know the Western canon much better, having studied French lit. But there won't be too much French in here, because I'm still going to try to be not super obscure, but still promote promote some forgotten or a little lesser known works, although not unknown by any stretch, since I'm going to limit myself to the Nobel laureates. Anytime you have to pick 10 out of all the amazing things that have ever been written, you have to give yourself a limitation. So I began by limiting myself to the Nobels. So that's going to exclude, lesser known works by authors that I would love to have see taught in American literature, at least, such as Pick by Kerouac, an amazing road story, but of the black diaspora, two little boys taking a bus up north. Or it's going to stop me from inserting authors that I want to elevate to, if not canonical status, at least literary status that maybe are from less literary fiction, like one of my favorite Roberts Robbins, Half Asleep in Frog Pajamas, stuff like that. Or even promote some of the ones that I think are going to be safer future classics, like Echo's Name of the Rose. So I won't be able to include any of them, so I'm just sticking to the Nobels. And no nonfic, just because fiction's already at enough of a disadvantage to so many people. I don't read fiction, only nonfiction. So that's going to leave out our historians, philosophers, etc., that are included in the Nobel winners. And no poetry. So this is, I won't be able to include even book-length poems, Mistral's Mireo, Spiteller's Olympian Spring, Walcott's Omeros, things like that I would have loved to included, because I'm sticking to novels. So these are Western classics novels. By the way, I am aware, I have read Bloom's Western Canon. I am aware of the whole debate about the Western Canon. I'm just not going to get too much into that in this video. Maybe in a future video, if you're really interested in hearing my philosophies on that, I'll bore you with that. But okay, so we're going to do, this is going to very much limit us. So there's only a few Asians that have won Nobels, only a few Africans. But we're going to do we won't touch Oceania at all. So that's going to leave out Patrick White. I would have loved to include some Australian fiction Coombs, White Teeth, not White Teeth, what was it called? Anyway, well, that'll have to be another video as well. This one is Nobel's winners, Nobel laureates, who wrote novels. Although I'm going to pick a number of shorter novels to help out with that. Okay, so we've got from Asia, with Apologies to Mo Yan's Republic of Wine, which I loved. I'm going to stick with Gao Xingjian's Soul Mountain, Linshan. And although he's mainly known as a playwright, wrote some amazing plays, The Other Shore, things like that, especially in China. It's known for that. Although he is in exile, most of the ones who win the Nobel Prize that have go on to represent their country, ironically, are exiles from, or expats, expatriated from their country of origin for various reasons, some of which you can imagine. So that's always interesting. But Gao Xingjian's, my small experience of China, having lived there 3 times now, really feeling very Chinese for me. Pearl Buck also does an amazing job in some of her works, especially The Good Earth and all that, in capturing maybe a foreigner's experience of China, but a really deep imagining of China, in my opinion. So Gao Xingjian's Lingshan, Soul Mountain, my first one on here. And the only reason to exclude Mo Yan is I haven't read as much of the more recent winners, and also as they are more recent, they're more likely to have more works. They may become famous and less need my promotion. And then some of these Nobels, I would have liked to include many of the earlier. This limits us to the last century, right, of literature, so I can't go back further than that. But I would like to have included more, especially if I was going to do more with Europe, of the early winners that have begun to be forgotten, that shouldn't be, in my opinion. But so even among the Nobel winners, there are many that just aren't being read anymore. So our only other really, except the subcontinent, we've got Japan here, except a recent one that, but again, as I mentioned, I'm not doing. So here, though I like Oi's sort of more personal novels that I've read about his family and music and disability and all of those wonderful works, I love Kawabata. Now, if it were if I could pick anything, I'd pick his Palm of the Hand stories. But since we're doing novels, I'm going to do his sequel to Snow Country, which is Thousand Cranes, which I slightly preferred. So Kawabata, check that out. Amazing. Okay. Then in the subcontinent, we've got, of course, Tagore. Oh, by the way, many of us readers don't know how to pronounce things that we've never had a chance to talk with anyone about. We've only read these and we don't know how they're pronounced. But I don't think I'm going to be doing apologies for my pronunciations all the time. For most of the languages which I do not speak, and even the few that I do, certainly don't get the tones right on Lingshan, I'm sure. And the reason being is, as we're apologizing all the time for mispronouncing, it's not just out of disrespect. We love these things, we're promoting them. I think it makes people more hesitant to try and talk about foreign things. They're afraid, right, to make mistakes, and I think that's a pity. So let's mispronounce. We'll do our best, but it's okay. Let's talk about these people. So I don't know how to say his last name. I loved, but I like Kawabata better. Now to Tagore. That's how I say it. I don't know. Rabindranath Tagore. He more known as a poet as well. Gitanjali. And some amazing plays as well. This Postman one that I really loved, a little girl dying in her relationship with the postman. He has a bunch of novels, so I'm going to ask you to help me pick. So here's his novels. You tell me which is your favorite, because I cannot pick, and I haven't read half of them. So, of course, Quartet and Home of the World, more well-known, and Fair-Faced Gora. There's also Nexus, Farewell Song, 4 chapters, Arbor, and Two Sisters. So let me know which is your favorite Tagore novel, those of you better read in Tagore than me. So he's from India, Bengali. I believe he writes in Bengali and English. And then NAipaul, yes, obviously of Indian origin, but he's also going to stand in for us for the Caribbean, since I couldn't get Walcott in with Omeros. So his works that I've read and loved are many: Bend in the River, House of Mr. Biswas. So definitely read NAipaul, good fun. I'm sure he has an opinion on my, including him in one or the other of those broad world regions to represent. So apologies for that, but he's great, so couldn't leave him out. Okay, let's do Europe real briefly. Gosh, so many, but I'm going to avoid Western Europe, even though it's what I know best. So no Germans, no French, and none of that. Just because they're a little bit better known. I will put in a Portuguese, Saramagos, a shorter work that I think is great, sort of sci-fi, really fascinating read of his. Nothing against blindness or the others, but is The Cave, really sort of an allegory. Check out The Cave. It's a short read by Saramagos. I think you'll really enjoy that. I will do one Nordic. Obviously, they're overrepresented in the Nobels, but I want to get more women in. So I've got one in the Africans that we'll get to in a minute, but could add a couple there. But I've got Undset, Kristen Landesdatter, I think is the name of it, a fantasy trilogy epic story, really good fun. I also enjoyed Deleda, but I don't know her novels. I've read her shorter works. So a couple, there are more than a couple European women writers there. For the East, there are so many. Oh, and I must put Pamuck in there. I don't know what we want to do with Turkey, but we don't want to leave that one out. So Pamuck definitely in there for. I think My Name is Red was one that I read that I liked. Andric is going to represent. Could be Canetti, Auto Da Fe, a bunch of people that I love from this sort of Eastern Europe, Central Europe side, but I've got to pick Bridge over the Drina, Ivo Andric, for that. So now Africa. We don't have as much as I would like. Unless, you start stretching and trying to include Camus, La Peste and things like that. Or Toni Morrison's Song of Solomon, or I don't know, the African diaspora. Otherwise, we've pretty much got, Wole. Oh, no, we do have another black African now, but more white Africans. So I will include Lessing. There are a couple South Africans. There's Nadine Gordimer, right, with Bergersman's daughter and the one where her servant is trying to save her life. Anyway, those are fun, but I got to give it to Lessing's Yellow Notebook. Now, that is not a short read, but you can read in it, read bits, and it's one that can be very much enjoyed like that. She has a lot of shorter works, especially, and she could be anywhere, right? She's Persian, she's world literature writ large, so she's a fun one. And I really do enjoy reading also some of her expatriate stuff and how she feels when she's back in England and all that good stuff. For Wole, also more known as a playwright, the Hangman's, the King's Hangman, things like that. I've picked The Interpreters. It's a novel I think that you can enjoy alongside Achebe's, who wrote the Things Fall Apart, his work, Arrow of God, sort of about more modern Africans, how Africans are negotiating their traditional cultures with their, that are having a more modern or more colonial upbringing. And then we've got Mahfouz. Now, Mahfouz, wrote his Cairo trilogy, which I do love. However, there's one, and I can't remember the name of it. I should have checked. Somebody, who is like again, sort of fantastical work, imaginative literature, where he's, almost like Gulliver's Travels, where he's going around these lands. That is my favorite by far. I'll put it in the notes, the title for that one. Okay, so we've done Africa, Asia, subcontinent, missed out on Oceania. So I guess the Americas, right? And obviously, most of these winners are European. So that could have taken all 10 of the list. So apologies for all the huge, even when I narrowed it to the Nobels and only novels, still so many people I couldn't include. I'm not going to put an American, but I will squeeze in Saul Bellow as a Canadian. And he has a short work that you can really enjoy. Some of his works are longer, denser, very intellectual, but amazing. And I think they're still being read, but by certain people, they're considered a little difficult. I mean, they're certainly probably more read now than like Sinclair Lewis or some other people I could have tried to bring back from, the Americans that are lesser read nowadays. But I love Bellow. I've read almost all of his longer works, Augie March and Herzog. But Dangling Man is still one of my favorites, and it's a short read, one of his early works, about a guy, waiting to be drafted to go off to war and just hanging in the balance. Okay, we've got the Latin Americans, so many. Gabriel Garcia Marquez is well known. Otherwise, I would definitely include him. Although one of his lesser known works, it's the Poison Pen one, where someone's sending, dirty letters about all the people. I love that one. That people don't seem to read that one as much. But anyway, he's just too well known to include. So sorry, apologies to him. Even Gabriela Cloven Cinnamon, Amado, Brazil would love to represent. But I think I'm down to 10. I think I've got one spot left. So I'm going to give it to Asturias, Guatemalan. So kind of get Central America represented in there. And with apologies to Paz, who also writes, doesn't write novels, more poetry and essays and criticism. So Asturias, he wrote a bunch. Man of Maize of Corn is one of my favorites. So check out Asturias there from Guatemala, and that's my top 10 canon. hopefully not too obscure, but hopefully at least a couple new names for you or new titles, maybe at least to check out. And yeah, ruling out poetry, we rule out all of the plays, so that gets rid of Shakespeare and all that. All of the epics, national epics, not all of them, but many of them, which are in poetry. So I did make my job a little bit easier there, but I would never want to say that I'm elevating these works above any of that. So obviously we have all of that canon that I hope you already know, as you are already bookie people. So here's just a few of mine. They have won Nobels, so they are more translated than a lot of world literature that I would have loved to include that hasn't been as translated and certainly is not as widely available to be read. And since they won Nobels, hopefully you can find these books and read them, enjoy them. Let me know what you think, and feel free to criticize. And but let's not get into too much of the whole Western canon Eurocentrism debate until another video. We'll do another video on that one, I promise you. But let's just look at literature and what we love, and see what voices we can find and bring out. Thank you so much for listening to my ramblings about world literature and my top 10.